There is a restaurant in a city I won't name that will sell you a $15 plate of grits. $15 for grits. They'll put a little sprig of something green on top that you're not supposed to eat. And they'll call it artisanal. And they'll cook it with a name. Stone ground, small batch, imported butter from a cow that probably has its own social media page. And people will wait 45 minutes for a table to eat those grits, and they will take a picture of it before they take a bite, and they will tell everybody how transcendent the experience was. Big Mama made better grits in 4 minutes on a Tuesday, with a spoon that didn't match any other spoon in the drawer, while she was also stirring gravy on the back burner and telling somebody to get their elbows off her table, and she didn't have a name for it. She just called it supper. That's what we're getting into today, family. Not the 25-course tasting menu, not the reservation you have to make 6 weeks out. We're talking about the 15-minute suppers, the ones Big Mama threw together after a 10-hour shift with what was already in the house, and somehow made taste like something a chef would charge you your whole paycheck for. We're going to walk through them, decade by decade, and by the end of this, family, I want you to understand something. What you've been paying for at these fancy restaurants, she was already doing it, for free, on a Tuesday, in her house shoes. Hey family, I'm James, and today we're doing something a little different. We're putting modern fine dining up against the 15-minute suppers our grandmothers threw together back in the 60s and 70s, and we're going to see who really wins. Now, before we get into it, if this is your first time sitting with me, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. We're building something here, a place where these memories get to live instead of disappearing. So, go on, subscribe, ring that bell, and let's get into it. Now I want to walk you through this the way it happened, decade moving forward, year by year, because the genius didn't show up all at once. It built, it sharpened. By the time we get to the end of this list, you're going to understand that what looked like just supper was actually a masterclass nobody ever wrote down. Number 1, 1960. Fried bologna and rice with a skillet of pan gravy. You go to a restaurant today, they'll serve you a seared charcuterie for $18, a few slices of something cured, fanned out on a plate like a magic trick. Big Mama took a package of bologna, the thick-cut kind, cheap, the kind you bought because it stretched, and she scored the edges with a paring knife so it wouldn't curl up into a bowl in the skillet. She fried it in a little bacon grease she kept in a coffee can by the stove, and the edges went dark and crisp, while the center stayed soft. And then she poured a little water and flour into that same skillet, scraped up every bit of what was stuck to the bottom, and made a gravy the color of an old penny, poured it over white rice. That was supper. 10 minutes, maybe 12. The whole kitchen smelled like Sunday, even though it was a Tuesday. You understand me? That gravy had more flavor in it than half the sauces these restaurants reduce for 6 hours, because she wasn't reducing anything. She was rescuing something. Every bit of what stuck to that pan, she brought back to life. Folks don't do that anymore, and that's a shame because that's not a shortcut. That's technique. Number 2, 1961. Smothered chicken wings, quick style. Now the fancy places today will bring you a single chicken wing, confit, resting on a smear of something for $11. And they will explain to you for 90 seconds why the wing is special before they set it down. Big Mama had 6 wings, a cast iron skillet already hot from earlier in the day, and about 18 minutes before the 6 o'clock news came on. She dredged those wings light, flour, black pepper, a little garlic powder if she had it, paprika if she didn't. Fried them just enough to get color, then pulled them out and dropped onion into that same grease. Let it go soft and gold, poured in a little water, a little of whatever broth was sitting in the icebox from the day before, scraped the bottom, dropped the wings back in, put a lid on it, and let it ride on low while she set the table. By the time the plates were out, that chicken had absorbed all of it. The onion, the drippings, the pepper, and it fell right off the bone. 18 minutes, family. The whole thing came together in the time it takes one of these restaurants to bring you your bread basket. Number 3, 1962. Rice and neckbone gravy made from what was already boiling. This one's clever, and I need you to sit with it a minute. Big Mama always had a pot of neck bones going somewhere in that kitchen, sometimes on the stove since morning, simmering low for greens or for Sunday. But on a Tuesday when she needed supper fast, she'd ladle off some of that broth, thicken it right there in a smaller pan with a spoon of flour, season it up, and pour it over a pot of rice that had been cooking the whole time on the back eye. 15 minutes of active work, but she was pulling from something that had already been building flavor for hours. She just knew how to grab it at the right moment and turn it into a different meal entirely. That's not luck. That's a woman who understood her kitchen the way a conductor understands an orchestra. She knew exactly what was happening in every pot at every moment, without ever writing a single thing down. Number 4, 1963. Fatback and grits with red-eye-style pan drippings. Some of these restaurants now, they'll do a pork belly and polenta for $22 and call it elevated Southern cuisine. Child, let me tell you something. Fatback and grits was elevated Southern cuisine before anybody decided it needed a French word attached to it. Big Mama fried strips of fatback slow, low heat until the fat rendered clear and the meat went crisp on the edges. Then she'd pour a little strong coffee right into the hot grease, just a splash, and let it bubble up dark and sharp, and pour that over a bowl of grits she'd already had going. The bitterness of the coffee cutting the richness of that fat. That's a flavor combination these restaurants spend years developing in a test kitchen, and she developed it standing at a stove with a percolator on the counter behind her. Number 5, 1964. Pinto beans and hot water cornbread. This is the one, family. This is the one that, if you know, you know. Beans that had been soaking or simmering already. She'd doctor them up quick with a little onion, a little of whatever meat scrap was around, and let them go while she mixed cornmeal with boiling water right in a bowl until it turned into a thick, almost dangerous hot paste. She'd shape it with her bare hands, fast because it burned, into little patties, and fry them in a hot skillet until the outside cracked like a shell and the inside stayed soft as a cloud. 15 minutes, maybe less if the beans were already going. You cannot get that texture from a restaurant. I don't care how many Michelin stars are on the door. That crack and give texture only comes from hands that have done it 10,000 times and know exactly when to pull it off the heat. Number 6, 1965. Salmon croquettes and scrambled eggs. Supper for breakfast style. Now, this is where Big Mama's genius gets sneaky. A can of salmon, the cheap kind, bones and all, because she knew those bones had calcium and she wasn't wasting anything. Mixed with a cracked egg, some crushed crackers, a little onion, formed quick into patties and fried till golden. Alongside a skillet of eggs scrambled soft, maybe some grits if there was time. This whole thing, mixing bowl to plate, 12 minutes. And I want you to think about that for a second. She was making what these restaurants now call brunch, except she was doing it at 6:30 at night for a family of 8 out of a single can that cost about a quarter at the time. Number 7, 1966. Smothered pork chops, quick skillet, thin cut chops, the kind that cooked fast. She'd season them heavy, brown them quick on both sides, just enough color, then build the gravy right in that same pan while the chops rested on a plate covered with foil to keep warm. Onion, a little flour, a little milk or broth, scraped up every dark bit stuck to the bottom of that skillet. Because that's where the flavor lives, family, in the fond, in the stuck bits. And these restaurants will tell you that in French, deglacer, like it's some secret technique. It's not a secret. Big Mama was doing it before she ever heard that word, because her mother did it, and her mother's mother did it before her. Now, before we keep going, family, I want to hear from you. What is the one quick supper? Not the Sunday dinner, not the holiday spread, but the regular Tuesday night, thrown together fast supper that your mother or your grandmother made that you have never once been able to recreate the same way. Drop it in the comments. I read every single one of them, and I promise you, somebody else out there had the exact same dish in their house, 3 states away, and never knew it. Number 8, 1967. Chicken and dumplings, the drop dumpling way. Not the rolled kind, the fast kind. If there was leftover chicken and broth already in the pot from earlier in the week, she could have this on the table in under 20 minutes. Mix flour, a little baking powder, a spoon of the hot broth itself right into the dry mix. Drop spoonfuls right into the simmering pot. Put the lid on and don't touch it. Don't lift that lid. She'd tell you that like it was scripture. You lift the lid, you let the steam out, and the dumplings go flat and sad. 15 minutes covered, and you'd have dumplings so light they practically floated, sitting in a broth that had been building flavor across 2 meals already. These restaurants serve you a single, perfect dumpling in a shallow bowl of consommé for $16. Big Mama fed 6 children off one pot. Number 9, 1968. Hoppin' John, the quick weeknight version, built from what was left in the icebox. The Sunday version took all day. You know that. But the Tuesday version, the fast one, she'd make from a can of black-eyed peas already cooked, a scrap of ham or bacon rendered down quick in the pan, rice that was already made from the night before, all of it tossed together in one skillet until it married. 10 minutes. And what came out of that skillet had more soul in it than half the grain bowls these places sell you now for $14 with a poached egg on top, like that's supposed to impress somebody. Number 10, 1969. Fried Spam and rice with a little sweet and savory glaze made from what was on the shelf. Now, I know some of you are laughing at this one, and that's all right, laugh. But I want you to really hear me on this. Spam, sliced and scored, fried till the edges caramelized dark, and then a little sugar or syrup dropped right in the hot grease at the end, so it glazed up sticky and sweet against the salt of the meat. Over rice. That sweet-salty combination, sweet and savory together, these restaurants call that umami balance now, and they charge you extra for it. Big Mama was doing it with a can that cost less than $1 in the time it took the 6 o'clock news to come on. Number 11, 1970. Neck bone stew, pressure cooker, quick. This is the decade where the pressure cooker started showing up in more of these kitchens. And let me tell you, family, when Big Mama got hold of one of those, supper time changed forever. Neck bones that used to take 3 hours on the stove could come out fall apart tender in 40 minutes. And if she started it right after work, she could have a full pot of stew, potatoes, carrots if there were any, a rich dark gravy built right in, ready before 7 o'clock. That hiss of that pressure cooker rocking on the stove, family, if you grew up in one of these houses, you know exactly the sound I'm talking about. That was the sound of supper coming. Number 12, 1971. Butter beans and skillet cornbread, no recipe style. Butter beans from a can or from what had been put up that summer, warmed quick with a little butter and a little of the ham hock liquor if there was any left. And a single round of cornbread baked hot and fast in a cast iron skillet greased with bacon fat so the bottom came out lace crisp. That skillet cornbread, family, you'd hear it crackle when she poured the batter in. That crackle. These restaurants can't replicate that crackle because they don't preheat their skillet in a 200-degree oven for 20 minutes with bacon grease already smoking in the bottom of it. That's not a recipe step. That's a relationship with a piece of iron that's been in the family longer than some of the children have. Number 13, 1972. Liver and onions, quick fried, smothered in its own pan gravy. Now some of you are going to turn your nose up at this one, and I understand, but I want you to know something. Liver was cheap, liver was full of iron, and Big Mama knew how to cook it so it wasn't tough and it wasn't bitter. Dredged light in flour, fried hot and fast. No more than 2 minutes aside, because overcook that liver and you've ruined it. Pulled out, and the onions went into that same pan to soften in the drippings. Then a quick gravy built right there. 10 minutes from start to plate. These restaurants are now bringing back awful cuisine, like it's some new discovery from a culinary school. Big Mama discovered it in 1972, out of necessity, and made it taste better than they do now, out of trend. Number 14, 1973. Fried okra and stewed tomatoes together in one skillet. Sliced okra, dredged in cornmeal, fried till the outside, went crisp enough to crack, and stewed tomatoes. Sometimes canned, sometimes what was put up from the garden. Simmered down quick in the same kitchen. Sometimes even the same skillet after a wipe down. So the tomato picked up a little of that cornmeal crust flavor left behind. 15 minutes, maybe less. The whole house would smell like late summer, even in the dead of winter, because that's what canning does. It lets you carry August into January. Now, family, before we move into the final stretch of this list, I need you to notice something. Every single one of these suppers we've covered so far took less time to make than it takes one of these restaurants to bring you your appetizer. And every single one of them was built on a piece of knowledge that never got written into a cookbook. It got written into hands, into habit, into the particular way a woman moved around a kitchen she'd been standing in for 20 years. You won't find that in a $15 tasting menu. You will not find it there. Number 15, 1974. Smothered cabbage with smoked neck bone, chopped fine and fast. Cabbage chopped thin, smoked neck meat pulled off the bone from something already cooked earlier. Both of it thrown into a hot skillet with a little grease and a splash of vinegar right at the end to wake the whole thing up. 15 minutes and the cabbage went from raw and stiff to silky and deep, carrying that smoke all the way through. That splash of vinegar at the end, family, that's the move these fancy kitchens call acid balance. Like they invented the idea that a little sharpness at the end wakes a dish up. Big Mama knew that before she knew how to read a thermometer because she tasted it, and she trusted her tongue over any instrument. Number 16, 1975. Red beans and rice, the weeknight shortcut, made from canned beans doctored to taste like they'd simmered all day. Canned red beans, a little smoked sausage sliced and browned, first to render fat into the pot. Onion and celery soften quick in that same grease. Everything simmered together, maybe 12 minutes with a heavy hand of seasoning. Cayenne, garlic, bay leaf if she had one. And mashed just slightly with the back of a spoon to thicken the whole pot without a single spoon of flour. Over rice that had been going the whole time. That little trick, mashing some of the beans to thicken instead of adding flour or cream. That's a technique. That's understanding starch. These culinary schools teach a whole unit on that principle. She learned it from her mother in about 4 minutes, standing at the stove, and never forgot it. Number 17, 1976. Fried chicken livers with onion gravy over rice or grits. Chicken livers, cleaned quick, dredged, fried hard and fast, so the outside crisped while the inside stayed tender. Not overdone, never overdone, because dry liver was a sin in that kitchen. And a gravy built from the drippings with onions cooked down soft and sweet. 12 minutes, the whole dish rich, almost decadent, but built from a piece of the chicken most folks threw away. That's the whole philosophy right there, family. She looked at what other people discarded, and she found the flavor hiding in it. Now these restaurants call that nose-to-tail cooking, and act like it's some new age sustainability movement. It's not new, it's old. It's older than any menu you've read this year. Number 18, 1977. Tuna croquettes, quick fried, same bones as the salmon, but a different flavor entirely. A can of tuna, an egg, a little mustard, crushed crackers, formed fast and fried in shallow oil, till golden on both sides. Served alongside whatever vegetable was already going. Butter beans, greens, whatever was on the stove. 8 minutes, maybe 10. A meal built almost entirely from the pantry, on a night when there was no time and not much money, and it still tasted like somebody loved you. Number 19, 1978. Chicken and rice, one pot, everything cooked together so nothing went to waste. Chicken pieces browned quick in a deep skillet, rice added right into the same pot along with the drippings, broth poured over the top, lid on, and the whole thing left to finish together so the rice soaked up every bit of what that chicken released as it cooked. 20 minutes, mostly hands off, but every grain of that rice carrying flavor, a restaurant would need a whole stock pot and 6 hours to build. One pot, one woman, 20 minutes. And number 20, the last one, family, and I saved this one for the end on purpose, because it's not really a recipe. It's the whole philosophy standing there in front of you. Whatever's left stew, no decade attached to this one, because it happened every single week, in every single one of these houses, across every single one of these years we just walked through. Whatever was left in the icebox on a Thursday night, a little meat, a vegetable or two, some broth from earlier in the week, maybe a spoon of gravy that had been saved in a jar. All of it went into one pot, together, and Big Mama stood over it and tasted it and adjusted it until it became something whole. Something that didn't taste like leftovers. Something that tasted like it had been planned that way from the beginning. 15 minutes, sometimes less. No recipe, no measuring cup. Just 40 years of knowing exactly what a pot of food needs before it needs it. That family, that right there, is the thing these restaurants cannot sell you, no matter how much they charge. You cannot put 40 years of knowing on a menu. You cannot plate She loved you, and she was tired, and she made it anyway. That's not a technique you learn in a kitchen school. That's a technique you learn from a woman who never once called herself a chef, because she didn't need the title. She had the results. I think about that a lot, family. I think about how we've been convinced that food has to be complicated to be good, that it has to have a French name, a wine pairing, a server who explains it to you before you're allowed to eat it. And I think about Big Mama standing at that stove in her house shoes, 15 minutes on the clock, feeding 6 or 8 or 10 people out of pots and pans that didn't match, using techniques nobody ever wrote down because nobody thought they needed writing down. They thought everybody already knew. We didn't have much, but we had everything that mattered. And what mattered was a woman who understood heat and time and salt and love better than any institution that hands out a certificate for it today. This right here, this is something we need to bring back. Not the $15 grits, not the reservation 6 weeks out, the 15-minute supper made by somebody who knew exactly what she was doing, even if she never once called it a skill. You won't see that today. Not the way it used to be, but you can. You can put a skillet on the stove tonight, family, and you can start. I'll see you next time, family.